I actually need to start my talk with a confession. Hello, my name is Libby Lies. I am 33 years old, and I have a Harry Potter problem. I have costumes. I have been to the midnight releases of 6 books and all 8 movies, sometimes in said costume. I own a wand because, as you know, the wand chooses the wizard. I have made the pilgrimage to the Harry Potter studio tour in London, also known as the best day of my life. And guess what? I'm unapologetic about it. But I didn't always used to be that way. All my life, I've been a bit overzealous about my pastimes. Music, theater, dance, reading, crafts, sports, you name it. I was interested in school, but I was also incredibly interested in being interested. Marching to the beat of my own drum, I loved my hobbies with reckless abandon. I was different, a little kooky, and curious about too many strange things for the sleepy little Midwestern town I grew up in, and I was made fun of for it. I was called one of the meanest 4-letter words you can call a kid in elementary school. I was a nerd. The Oxford English Dictionary defines the word as such. Nerd, noun. An insignificant, foolish, or socially inept person. A person who is boringly conventional or studious. A person who pursues an unfashionable or highly technical interest with obsessive or exclusive dedication. The OED also marks the first usage of the word in the American magazine Newsweek in 1951. Quote, "In Detroit, someone who once was known as a drip or a square is now regrettably a nerd." Guilty. Now, there are certainly more pejorative words than nerd these days. It seems mild compared to some of the things we call each other. But words, even those that seem insignificant, like nerd, carry weight. You're all students, or I'm sure you were at some point, and you know the power of words. I'm sure you know words can be powerful weapons in school. According to the educational nonprofit organization, the Bully Project, verbal abuse in schools is a common and insidious form of bullying. It often happens because the victims of bullying are socially vulnerable. They possess some characteristic that makes them different from the perceived norm. A person may be singled out because his or her identity doesn't conform. So geekily obsessive nerds are often said victims. But times are changing, and nerds around the globe are uniting, and I propose that instead of using nerd as a 4-letter word, we take it up as a battle cry. Language is funny that way. What once wounded can be weaponized by those who felt its sting. According to linguist Paul Baker, a professor at the University of Lancaster, reappropriating a word like nerd is an act of defiance. By using a word that is traditionally meant to maim, reappropriation starts as an act of bravado by a few of the oppressed, then may become an empowering mechanism for a much wider community. Alternative discourse ousts and replaces discourses of power. So how do we beat the bullies, the naysayers, and the too cool kids? We embrace our nerdiness, and we fly our nerd banners. Let's change language right now, shall we? Nerd does not mean you are weird. It does not mean you are socially inept. It does not mean you are a ridiculous dreamer. Nerd is just another word for passion. And when we embrace our nerdiness, our obsession with the things that we're passionate about, we embrace happiness, self-acceptance, and community. And this isn't just from my personal experience. Research in psychology and neuroscience suggests that being a nerd makes you a better, healthier person. Learning new things and skills to be passionate about has been associated with increased neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to make new connections and grow new neurons. For example, a German study showed that adults who became proficient jugglers showed increased brain volume in MRI scans. Hobbies we are passionate about help keep our minds nimble, combating the weakening of intellectual skills that are part of the aging process. So from challenging a friend to a game of chess, to playing words with friends with the hope of doubling your highest score, to, I don't know, trying out for the basketball team. Being a nerd keeps your brain busy and sharp. In short, research suggests we'd all be better off if we were big nerds. And if happiness and a healthy brain isn't enough of a motivator, perhaps we could take a look at some very famous, successful people who also happen to be huge nerds. There are music nerds. When not investing in the global stock market or donating, I don't know, $30 billion to charity, businessman Warren Buffett likes to play the ukulele. Cute. Nobel scientist and everyone's favorite wacky-haired professor loved to play violin. In fact, he was a passionate, gifted violinist, Mr. Albert Einstein. There are creative nerds. Oscar-winning actor Tom Hanks likes collecting vintage typewriters. How super nerdy and also kind of charming is that? Mark Twain, the American humorist and author of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, was a cat nerd. He loved cats, and he named his pets some very interesting things, including Apollinaris, Soapy Sal, Buffalo Bill, Sour Mash, and Pestilence. Tim Duncan, the 14th highest scoring NBA player of all time, loves playing Dungeons and Dragons. Let me repeat that for the cheap seats. Dungeons and Dragons. And he even has a tattoo of Merlin. Look it up. There are sports nerds. Speaking of looking it up, Google co-founder Sergey Brin loves high-flying trapeze. Former game show host Bob Barker loves karate, and he was trained by none other than Chuck Norris. No joke. And here comes the most epic nerdiness I think I've ever heard of in my entire life. Are you ready? Okay. Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak loves playing Segway polo. You're welcome. You're welcome. And some of my favorite people that I know personally, I consider them huge nerds. My friend Christy works for a media corporation by day and cosplays as her favorite characters by night. My friend Amanda has read and reviewed over 1,000 books on Goodreads. Even our own principal, Mr. Caldwell, is a huge nerd. He loves capoeira, an Afro-Brazilian martial art that incorporates acrobatics, music, and dance. And he can do it while citing Cicero and Seneca. And then there's me, an HP. All of my friends I consider nerds are the better for it. By embracing their nerdiness, their passion, they motivate themselves to live richer, happier lives, to never stop learning, and to live fully in the present. May we all find something that makes us happy to live on this still beautiful planet together. All of this is easy for me to say as an adult. So if I could go back in time to meet my elementary school self, the person who was so hurt by the words and opinions of others, I would take her by the shoulders, I would, let's be honest, wipe away a tear. I would look her in the eye and I would say, hold on, kid. Embrace who you are. Love who you are, be enthusiastic about who you are, because why would you want to be boring when you could be a nerd? Chin up, Nerd is just another word for passion. So I close through the words of a childhood hero, author Roald Dahl. I began to realize how important it was to be an enthusiast in life. If you are interested in something, no matter what it is, go at it at full speed ahead, embrace it with both arms, hug it, love it, and most important of all, become passionate about it. Thank you.